Hello and welcome to All Elite Morro on this horrific Sunday evening from Kilkenny, Ireland. Weather is shite. No, Monday evening, what am I talking about? Monday evening, 7:30, new time slot. Uh, did the Forbidden Door preview on Saturday, which forced Shane to release this week's podcast to go head to head with me, where we looked at kind of power struggles, the power dynamics going on within WWE at the moment. Really enjoyable episode, actually. I enjoyed doing that one. So that's up on the channel there now. But see, I was tactical. Released the Forbidden Door one, forced Shane to get the power dynamics one out, try and beat me in the ratings. Now we have a clear run at Monday Night Morrow. The Monday Night Messiah, really. Mainly focusing today on Forbidden Door. I was going to do a bit on SmackDown, but geez, that sucked ass. Actually, it's a big bang. One of the comments we have in for this week's show from Ron double underscore N80. SmackDown Dublin was just an overpriced house show. Kind of sums it up. In fact, look, we'll actually look a little bit at. Oops, spoiling. I'm spoiling the lead here. Spoiling the lead, David Ayer. I enjoy any episode where you dog out Triple H. That's not even like it's becoming a little bit of a gimmick, the dogging out Triple H, but yeah, he deserves it. He deserves it. Yeah, we did speak about that, how like a while ago Shane put some of these little clickbait things he does with me on TikTok, where he takes the most outlandish thing I say, clips it into a minute, puts it up on TikTok, drives people mad. I get a lot of grief online. It's fine. We did one on Triple H there a while ago, and I got like a big backlash from people on TikTok commenting, and then he did another one like relatively recently. And Dunphy can't drive vans correctly. We know that, Shane. We know that. Shane, are you in the van? So Shane and Dunphy are on a secret mission at the moment for the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show. All will be revealed in time. They're on a secret mission that will revolutionize the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show. It's without a shadow of a doubt the most exciting thing the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show have ever done. And not only that, it is the most exciting thing to ever happen in my entire 38 years of existence. Um, so yeah, let's just look at the SmackDown cage match. Can you speak up? Am I speaking low? I feel like I'm shouting here. Shut up, Shane. Uh, Oshin says, sound for letting me know I didn't miss much with SmackDown. Anyway, look at this card. I don't know if you can see this if it's too small. ASMR. AS Morrow. ES Tate. Um, Look at this card. I know, like, we're discounting the angles and Becky cutting promos and so on and so on. But, like, Jesus Christ. Mello don't miss. Give me a break. Yes, JB. This is the secret mission to get soundproofing for the office so you can speak louder. No, then we would lose the ASM nature of this. Shane did ask me on the pod how I'm so animated when I'm down in the dungeon, but not as much when I'm in the office. The office does need soundproofing, to be fair, but that's more because where I am is quite a busy main road off screen, obviously here. And I do worry that I don't have the mic turned up fully because when I was doing some test runs before, I could actually hear cars driving down the road and it was driving me mad. Like, Joan, you listen to a podcast and the sound is kind of crap. It's a little bit off-putting. Good, JB, the sound is good this week. Look at this card. Mello don't miss. Like, first defeating the Motor City Machine Gun 7 minutes. Piper Niven versus Charlotte defeats Charlotte Flair 7 minutes 33. The Street Profits defeating MFT. Poor Jesse Mateo, formerly known as Jeff Cobb, getting "You Can't Wrestle" chants from the Irish crowd. That was cringe. And the main event, the TV section, Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton defeats Becky Lynch and Nia Jax. That is a dog shit TV card. So when our double underscore N is saying that, what would you call it? Like it was a glorified house show. That looks like a house show card. I bet you if we clicked on like, what else did it have? It's probably like a live one. Yeah. Here, look. Road to Clash in Paris. What's the card? This is already better. Damian Priest, Aleister Black, Lyra versus Bailey. Cool little 6 man tag. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed versus the War Raiders. Tiffany Stratton defeats Triple Threat. 6 man tag. Like, in fact, um, the house shows. This is where's this Manchester, or Liverpool. So the house shows are better cards than the TV. By looking at that, there, this is a god awful card, and like people paid serious money. You, actually, the dark matches look kind of okay to me. I'd like to see that tag match, and I'd also like to see that singles match. The tag match or the dark matches for SmackDown looked way better in the TV section. So that is unfortunate, especially considering the prices. I don't know if you like you're you have your whole crew over on a tour, like your whole all because it's not just SmackDown, it's Raw and SmackDown are over on tour. So Raw wrestlers are available. You could have dark matches there with CM Punk, considering the prices that you're charging. Um, imagine James says, imagine being with Solo and you're the one getting the you can't wrestle chance. I know, and like Jeff Cobb has had like numerous excellent matches in his career, and he's also an Olympic wrestler. Um, highlighted tonight for JB was the crowd breaking into a rendition of Fields of Batting Right. Other than that, pretty decent Cena promo. It was one to miss or catch on YouTube. That's the thing, actually. Like, I mean, Shane speak about this a lot, but like so much of WWE content, you can just kind of like catch in clips on YouTube and not actually feel like you've missed a whole lot of the show. I did like the Cena. Look, Cena coming out now, cutting babyface promos is what it's all about, really, isn't it? He still has that aspect. Um, Forbidden Door, on the other hand, pretty decent rating on the cage match. Will we jump into Forbidden Door? So yeah, I suppose I'll start with overall thoughts on the Forbidden Door card. Um, oh no, sorry, we still have more fan reactions. JB, who's in the chat there, says that chair shot with Darby and Claudio is one of the wildest things I've seen in wrestling. Darby has now amassed like uh, a highlight reel of insanity that probably only matched by maybe Mick Foley because his highlight reel of insanity is now like almost like the bumps of Foley where he'd take these crazy bumps from like heights and through stuff and onto stuff and but also like thumbtacks and glass and all that kind of stuff with like the grisliness of like Abdullah the Butcher or something. He's turning into like he's built this all time highlight reel of in like this match alone. He had the chair shot with Claudio. He had off the top of the cage with Gabe Kidd. That looked wild as well because it was two of them crashing down together. And the fork spot with Mox. Like that guy went in as the only healthy member of his team, and he was determined to come out the unhealthiest member of his team. Just small like reaction from the crowd. Crowd did not flag for most of the night. Had a great time, but many a movement break was needed. Very long show. Yeah, it is a long show. Were you there, James? Um, like yeah, it was a long show, a lot of matches with not a whole lot of downtime in between. Um, Cottle has a really good question that I might actually circle back to later because it ties into something that I have planned for later. So Cottle has asked who goes into the Swerve and Osprey shaped holes in the roster for the future. So we're going to circle back to that because that ties in, I think, to a couple of the matches. Um, Oshin Max says, yet more proof that AEW on fire right now, a rip roar of a show from top to bottom. So yeah, generally fairly positive feedback on the show. Oh, you were there live. James, I think the crowd came across pretty well on TV. Like it was the type of crowd that like wasn't super loud all the time, but they got loud for like certain spots, certain moments. and it was like I felt like a crowd as well who were invested in the storylines. They knew what to look out for, and they knew what to react to, but it wasn't this like constant cauldron of noise. So I thought it was like a very attentive crowd who piped up when they needed to. And then, sure, look, it's the same one. It was even the same with SmackDown. The bits I saw of it the other night, um, like European crowds or international crowds, because when we seen AEW go to Mexico, the crowd there was insane as well. But like it's basically non-American crowds make the wrestling shows. They're like a thousand times better than what we get regularly in the US, even for big shows in the US. Uh, like you think a lot of the big shows this year, and sometimes I wonder if in the big stadiums if it's miking. Like the rest now WrestleMania is kind of a crap show anyway, but the crowd didn't seem too loud, and maybe that's a miking issue. Same with SummerSlam, the crowd didn't seem like crazy intensely loud, even though there's a huge crowd there. Same with All In. And I spoke to people who were at All In Texas who said, oh, like the crowd was mad loud. And I was like, well, I'm telling you, it wasn't mega loud. Like, there was crowds that seemed into those shows, but nothing like what you get out of European crowds. JB says, just watching Derby caused me to wake up with a sore back. Shout out to yourself, the channel, for getting me into AW. Anytime, JB, anytime. You came in at a real good time to put on a good run. Oshin says was a lot more attentive crowd that did their part when they needed to. Example being the Christian chant. Exactly. Yeah, like I did feel it was a super attentive crowd. Neil is in. I'll come back once I've seen the show. Love the pod. Keep up the good work. Thanks a million, Neil. Hope you enjoyed the show. Like in general, I thought this was a very good show that wasn't one of the great shows. But like when you're grading AEW pay-per-views, you're kind of grading on a curve because the standard of pay-per-view that they put out is like so exceptionally high that to me this was like a very, very good show. Really enjoyed the show. Me and John Martin, the Beast Martus, were texting back and forth throughout the show, both watching live. Shane jumped in a little bit later, um, and started from the start. Um, and it was like we were really enjoying the show. But on a whole, like I think they've done better shows this year. But like, not to be the guy that compares it to WWE, but this is probably better than any WWE produced pay-per-view this year. Yet I think it was worse than most of the other AEW pay-per-views this year. But like this is like I suppose like their average standard of pay-per-view, and that's how good it was. That kind of tells you how number one how on fire the company is that they produce a pay-per-view at this level. That I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, this is like their average. They've done much better. They've done worse at times, but like this is their average, which I thought was like an excellent case for that. Cottle Grow says super fun to watch in the arena, but an odd break for a piss or beer would be great. Yeah, it's impossible not to miss that with how bumper to bumper AWP pay-per-views are. Yeah, they're like so jam packed and they're long but jam packed. And a lot of times you just don't notice time going by. And I'm the same when I go to a wrestling show. I love to like nip out for a beer. I vape, so I love to nip out for a vape somewhere. Don't know if that's possible in the arena, but I'm sure there's somewhere. Um, obviously nip out for a piss, beer, little smoke, whatever it is. But AW pay-per-views are just so hard to do that during because it's bang, 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 and like there's not even like major segments. I know we got a couple of segments on this show that you classify as angles rather than matches, but they feel important as well. So it's hard to find the time to do those things because they are bumper to bumper. Yeah, like I said, this is a very good pay-per-view that by AEW's own standards doesn't match the heights that they have produced already this year. Um, I thought an absolutely wonderful addition to watching on TV. So for the likes of you that were in the arena, you wouldn't have had this benefit, I suppose. But I thought Brian Danielson as a commentator on this show was utterly exceptional. And I have him up here, the American Dragon, my God. Um, he was just added so much to the pay-per-view. Little comments he made about storylines, things he said to get wrestlers over. He had one moment that I thought was just pure genius commentary during the Nigel and Zack Sabre Jr. match, which we'll get back to. I thought he had a moment in that where I'm like, that is the standard that wrestling commentary needs to be at. That it isn't that. But Danielson brought that last night. I thought he was exceptional in the Hangman MJF match, especially when he started shouting for Hangman and he was like trying to stop himself. And he was able to use that then to say, when it came to the lights out steel cage match, I need to step away for this match because I can't be unbiased. Because his unbiases or his lack of or his biases were starting to come to the fore during the Max and Hangman match. Yes, I just thought he was exceptional all night. JV says, love Brian and commentary. When he excused himself, I fully expected them to have a run in during the cage match. I really thought that when I seen he was at Dynamite the other night that he would be added to the match along with Pac. But it feels like, kind of feels like he's gearing up for a return with his increased involvement in the last couple of months, be it on commentary here, be it on commentary on Wednesday, or being at the show and doing a couple of bumps um, at All In, and the same with the AEW Grand Slam Mexico. So we've seen him do little bit of physicality, and now we've seen him on commentary for a couple of shows. Kind of feels like he's gearing up to come back for a match, but I suppose the timing has to be right for the match as well. I don't think you can do like the match he's probably most likely to come back for is a Mox match. I see him definitely doing Utah, another Utah match. But I can see a Mox match, and I think you can't do the Danielson Mox match until after you've done the Derby Mox match, or the Derby Mox match, which you know we'll be talking about today, but I think is coming up pretty soon, like within a month. Um, we'll start at the start. Open the show. Cope and Christian versus the poster has Nick Wayne still, but unfortunately Nick Wayne has a broken foot. He's going to be out for a couple of months. So Luchasaurus, Kill Switch as they're calling him now, came in for Nick Wayne. Fine pay-per-view opener, nothing wrong with it. However, I did feel this was a match that probably would have been better served on Dynamite. You could main event Dynamite with this match and get the exact same out of it. I did think like Christian not fully getting rid of his asshole character is brilliant. Obviously the crowd pop for Metalingus was like insane. Um, but I thought there was kind of subtle hintings in the match that Kip Sabian and Killswitch couldn't work together, and that Killswitch was doing things that he would do with a different tag team partner who's also connected to Christian, um, a former tag team partner of Killswitch's. So I thought there was some foreshadowing here about potential future directions for Jack Perry, and I think it'd actually be a fantastic idea for Jack to come back in a tag team with Luchasaurus. And Cotton Crow asked a question earlier about who can step into the roles of uh, Osprey and Swerve, and I think like people forget how hot and how good Jack Perry was as a babyface when he was teamed with Luchasaurus. So I wonder could Jack Perry come back and team with Luchasaurus and re-enter the tag division to try and get himself heated up again to get back to the place on the card where he possibly has the potential to be. I don't think what we've seen he has the potential to be there as a babyface or as a heel, but he might actually have the potential to be there as a babyface. So I think this would be a good spot for him to come back in and reignite the tag team of a boy and his dinosaur. Because we've seen like there was a lot of things with Luchasaurus in the match where I felt was hinting at things. And then yeah, like it was a tidy opener. And obviously, Cope and Christian aren't going to lose their first match back. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent match. Nothing like exceptional. Got the crowd going with the music, with Cope's entrance, and some really nice storyline stuff between Cope and Christian. And again, I thought there was some really nice storyline stuff between Killswitch and Kip Sabian, and hinting at a lot of future directions. AEW's at its best when it layers its matches as well with hinting at future directions. So yeah, like the match itself was fine, but I liked what they were hinting at throughout the match. And I think, we're going to, Cope and Christian have done their thing now. Obviously, what happened to Christian, they had to deal with Nick Wayne and his crew. Um, but I think the real enemy for them is FTR. So we can now move into that uh, program, which I'm assuming is going to be one of the kind of higher pressed matches on the card for All Out in Toronto, which Cope, Christian, two Canadian boys, against FTR, who have tried to murder Cope in the past. I think that it will be well served on that All Out in Toronto card. Again, look, Hiromu Takahashi is one of my favorite wrestlers from like 2017 to 2021 or whatever. I think he's an exceptional wrestler. He didn't look in the best of shape here, but I thought he performed pretty well. Again, this was another match that was super predictable, but I just love the little heelisms that Kyle Fletcher has going on now, and how his arrogance and interaction with the crowd early in the match leads to a kind of a greater emotional connection for the babyface comeback later in the match. And then when he gets his cut off and win, it kind of generates a more heat. I just think if you watch his matches, just watch like those subtle interactions that he's doing with the crowd early in the match that then feed back into the heat that he generates later in the match, and also the sympathy that he can put on the babyface by being this like really cocky heel. But there's so many cocky heels in wrestling. There's very few that do it as good as this guy. And like, there's another cocky heel on this card later on in the show. Now, a cocky heel with some more inbuilt insecurities in MJF. But MJF isn't as good at some of these little subtle things early in the match as Kyle Fletcher is. MJF could take a leaf out of, or a page out of Kyle Fletcher's book in having a look at how he structures the early part of the matches to be able to generate maximum heat on himself and maximum sympathy on the babyface later on in the match. Like, and he's been doing this time and time again recently. Go and watch it, like pick a random Kyle Fletcher singles match and watch what he does in like the first 3 4 minutes. Like it's just, I think, super genius and also like fairly subtle, but it's working for him. I just think he's on an awesome run at the moment. Future top guy. To answer Cottle Crow's question again from earlier, I know Kyle Fletcher isn't on the babyface side, but he's a guy that could be featured. You know, get more segments and be featured more regularly on TV. Um, John Martin texted me and said AEW is going to sign Reigns at this rate. What was he talking about? Feels kind of out of nowhere. Are we missing some breaking news? I'll reload my Twitter. Well, I don't know what it's in response to. Are we breaking news here? I really doubt it, but okay, I'll ask him. What's that about, John? Um, So yeah, like again, a tidy little match, not an exceptional, but solid and well placed on the pay-per-view. Also, I thought Takahashi at the moment, I think he's like trying to transition to heavyweight, so he's carrying a little bit of extra weight than he normally would, which I felt kind of slows him down slightly. But he's just so charismatic, and he was able to kind of get the crowd on side with him by the end of the match, ably helped by Kyle Fletcher being a dick. Uh, yes, David, going to get to that. Spoiler alert. I don't think spoiler, but I totally agree with what David's saying in the chat there. We will get to that. I think that's going to be huge. Four-way, Mercedes, Persephone, Bozilla, and Alex Windsor. Really enjoyed this match. Mercedes is just on a tremendous pay-per-view run at the moment. And this match, like, it was very obvious, was designed around making Bozilla look like a star. And this is what Mercedes doing so well at the moment. She's given so much to her opponents to get them over. Go back to last year's Forbidden Door with Stephanie Vaquer. She gave her so much, and Stephanie Vaquer got the mega contract out of it from WWE. Um, JB says, based on what he's seen so far in AEW, Swerve and Hangman are two standouts for me. Heard a lot of good things about their feud, so excited to go back and watch that. I think like JB over the last 2 3 years, Swerve and Hangman are without doubt in my mind the most compelling characters in wrestling on a consistent basis. Their feud is really like, we're over halfway through the 2020s decade. I don't think there is a comparable feud this decade that you could say, if you're doing your rankings of what's the best feud of the decade, there isn't anything comparable in my mind. Other ones that like might be in the conversation. Punk and MJF was sensational. It never got the conclusion it was begging for. But their feud itself was just like pitch perfect for a few months. But in terms of like long term, Swerve and Hangman are just like what they've been doing is just next level. Um, so yeah, Bozilla was really highlighted, got the shine in this match. Bozilla's very young. She's only wrestling a couple of years. She's over in Stardom at the moment. I know companies now like AEW, like WWE are going to be looking at her as a next future star. She's second generation star. Ulf Herman was in ECW back in the day as her dad. Alex Winder has been a tremendous addition to the women's roster. Like she's been exceptional since she arrived in terms of TV matches, slotting her in at various parts of the card. She's able to do main event style. She can do mid card stuff. I thought, considering she was in her home country here, she was incredibly giving as well in terms of trying to make Bozilla look like a star. Persephone as well is another person, CMLL representative, one of the only CMLL representatives on the card. That's where I thought the card was a little bit weak. Could have done with a 6-man tag, with maybe Mystico's Sky team on it. Um, so yeah, no, I did think there was hints in this match that we will see another singles match pretty soon, probably between Mercedes and Persephone. They have their anniversary show coming up in CMLL in September, so I would imagine they'll want Mercedes possibly on that card. And I did think there was hints in here that Persephone could be the direction for that card. But Bozilla certainly got the mega push in this match. Like I don't think Mercedes hit a single move outside of how she got the pin. Um, Spot on, David. Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, and that Seth Punk feud is only getting worse as well, in my opinion. Like Seth's crew don't feel hot. Um, so Bozilla got the mega push in this match, got all the shine, looked like a monster, looks like a tremendous athlete. She gets wrestling at this stage, but she is still quite green. She's only 3 years in. She's only 21 years of age. Yes, JB, Alex Windsor's sharpshooter was perfection. She needs to make that, like, get that over as her finisher because it looked sensational. I meant to say that. I totally agree with that. It was the best sharpshooter I've seen since Brett. Um, I know Sting has done a lot of good ones, but late career Sting was really struggling with the squatting aspect of he called it the deathlock. Um, but yeah, Windsor sharpshooter looked so cool. Like, I think for Bozilla, like she's going to have interest in WWE after this performance. She obviously has interest from AEW. Um, she's only recently gone to Stardom from Marigold, and I think I think about this a lot with young independent wrestlers or wrestlers in promotions, like in young Western wrestlers who are performing in Japan, whose probably ultimate goal is to end up somewhere back in America. That's the wrestling they would have predominantly grown up with was American TV wrestling, especially if you're like 21 years of age. Um, but I do think another 2 to 3 years for her in Stardom would like in Stardom, those girls wrestle five, six, seven, 8 times a week. And she was recently in their 5-star Grand Prix. She had 5 or 6 matches in like a week and a half there against top talent, like some of the best women's wrestlers in the world. Uh, so I think a couple of years in stardom for her. And then, like I said, she's 21 and go to one of the American companies when you're 24, because I think by the time she's 24, with another couple of years stardom under the belt, given how good she already is, she has the potential to be the top woman in the industry. Is we see a lot of people go too early and not get the experience they need. Because if you're in AEW, you're wrestling max once or twice a week. If you're in WWE, outside of their tours, when they go to Europe and stuff like that, you're wrestling again max once or twice a week. And if you're in the development stage of your career, that's just not enough wrestling. There is no house shows with these companies as such anymore. As outside of tours, like AW have one announced house show in the next year. WWE are only doing house shows like sometimes one a week in America, and sometimes none in a week. And then if they're in Europe, they'll do house show tours. But like again, that's infrequent. So like if you're young and you're in the development phase of your career, getting the opportunity to work non-televised on house shows or on indies or on tours around Japan where you're doing several matches in a week, um, it's just invaluable. And if I was her, I'd take 2, 3 more years before I look to move to America. That Michael Oku bump to the outside JB was honestly one of the scariest bumps I've ever seen. And I don't even know if it's like Michael Oku is a maniac for doing crazy bumps anyway. Doing crazy bumps anyway. So like, yeah, but that just scared the shit out of me. The standard, I thought the pre-show matches were excellent. Like, look at the wrestlers they put on the pre-show. Ricochet's on the pre-show. Thought Yu Imura had a. I was like, because if previous weeks, I don't know if some people might tune out when I get to the New Japan section of this weekly podcast because maybe that's not your thing. You don't watch it. You don't know who I'm talking about, or whatever. But I've been spouting that if I was booking New Japan now, yeah, Suji seems like the one with the most star potential. But the guy I would want to push the most is Yu Imura, and he got a great pop on the pre-show. The reason I'm not kind of reviewing the pre-show is because trying to keep this to an hour. We're 31 minutes in on the third match, so that's why I'm not doing the pre-show. But the Michael Oku bump was insane. But I was also delighted to see Uemura get like decent pop from the English crowd. It kind of like made me, as I think like Forbidden Door can get back to being the Forbidden Door next year with like AEW versus New Japan matches rather than adding in some New Japan talent into kind of AEW matches already. And I think Yu Uemura could be one of those guys if handled right in Japan this year, given what we've seen at Forbidden Door and the pop he got this year. Um, you could build if New Japan build him right, he could be in a big match, big singles match next year. If like if they need to put him in a prominent position at Tokyo Dome this year, but then their destruction shows are coming up. The destruction tour is starting, building up to their kind of one of their pay per views, which is destruction, and he kind of again feels a little bit like an odd man out in that upcoming pay per view cycle. I can't figure out who they're really pairing him with to build to a match to that. But he is a guy that needs to be heavily featured as one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the company. Um, we've seen with the British fans and the AEW fans reacted to him on the pre-show. So there is an appetite in America or slash Britain for him, but within the American company that you kind of know now you could build a match for him for next year. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Nigel McGuinness. We had the Johnny Saint um, Vignette with playing chess with Nigel before. That warmed the cockles of my heart. Um, but I loved this match. It was so unique. It was so unique. Particularly, like, it was a real World of Sport, TV World of Sport style British technical wrestling masterpiece with 2 guys who are masters of that genre or of that style. Um, but there was a moment in commentary in this match that I felt made this match like really elevated. And it was Danielson. Danielson has a long history with Nigel McGuinness. Um, Going back to their major Ring of Honor feud, like one of the defining feuds of Ring of Honor's history is Danielson McGuinness, and probably the feud that damaged both men's career the most because they beat the shit out of each other. Um, But Josh, I love this match. But what Danielson did on commentary was exceptional when he laid out the differences between both men's style, and he said that like when he equated McGuinness as this like master tactician who has everything planned out and he knows like X, Y, and Z, and then he said about like technical wrestling for McGuinness is the tactician, and technical wrestling for Zack Sabre Jr. is he's playing jazz, it's improvisation. And it just gave us that little clash of styles so perfectly within what, like, it's still within the framework of technical wrestling, but how these 2 men approach it differently. And it added so much to the match for me that you see McGuinness using all these um, like, you could watch a World of Sport and you see all these pre-planned routines. I don't mean pre-planned between them, but they are like, but within the context of kayfabe in the match is that he has this set of routines that he goes through in his mind that X leads to Y and Y leads to Z and so on. Whereas Zack Sabre Jr. just does this thing in a kind of a flow state. And I thought he highlighted really well that it would serve Zack Sabre Jr. He said this early in the match, and it came back into the match perfectly. He said Zack Sabre Jr. needs to keep this on the ground because Nigel McGuinness has a mean lariat. And then that moment where Nigel lured him in, he had his back to him, but you could see Nigel looking over his shoulder, and he connects with that lariat. Um, Tremendous stuff. Really enjoyable match. I thought Garcia added a lot on the outside. Um, And I think, what it looks like here, we're building to a Zack Sabre Jr. and Garcia match, which is what I would love. I thought Garcia was turning heel here. And again, to go back to Cottle's question, I know Garcia doesn't feel hot at the moment, but it could be a good time to give him a push in the absence of Swerve and Ospreay. I don't think he is at a point in his career where he can get to that level that they're at in terms of character work and getting over with the crowd to the level they're at. But you never know. He was very, very close to it not so long ago when he did the MJF stuff. And then he went into the Adam Cole feud and the Jack Perry feuds back to back, and both of those cooled him off. But like if you go back to last year when he was doing the MJF stuff, he was very close to being over as one of the top guys on the babyface side of the roster. Um, All right, okay. Johnny Martz, Johnny the Beast Martis is watching Raw. Thanks, JB. Yeah, he's watching Raw. He isn't watching this. Thanks, John. Um, so yeah, you could heat up Garcia to try and get him back into one of those spots. I don't know if that'll work, but it's worth a try. He is a great pro wrestler. Oh man, this triple threat tag match, I was loving it until the end. However, yes, I actually liked the interference. I thought it paid off. Like the interference. So this is Brodito versus the Hurt Syndicate versus FTR. Uh, the interference towards the end, like this was just such a fun match throughout. Like Brodito and or Bandito and Brody King are so over. FTR are doing fantastic work as heels at the moment. Hurt Syndicate are over as well, despite the fact that there's lots of rumors going around about them not wanting to do business in the back and so on and so on, and the ending kind of feeds into that narrative that they're not there to do business. They didn't eat the pain in the match to lose the titles. That's always a bad indication. I think when triple threat matches are booked and the champions aren't the ones pinned because you're trying to protect them, I'm not sure what they're trying to be protected for. I think right now it's more important to protect FTR because FTR are the ones moving into the feud with Colt and Christian. Um, this is the thing, Oshin, that I find interesting as well, is that Ricochet and Gates of Agony's interference makes sense on two levels. So, you go back 6, 7, 8 months, Ricochet was denied entry to being a member um, of the Hurt Syndicate. So he's been sitting and stewing on it for 8 months, and he's now found two badass guys to join him with in Gates of Agony, and now he's gone back for revenge. Or we've seen MJF use Ricochet and Gates of Agony last week as kind of mercenaries with the Mark Briscoe angle. So is this also MJF um, hiring them as mercenaries to cost Hurt Syndicate the titles now that they've turned her, that the Hurt Syndicate removed MJF? So there's two little things going on there, and it's also smart from MJF to go get the guys who had was rejected by the Hurt Syndicate. I think it's a really good direction for Gates of Agony and for Ricochet. Ricochet had a kind of a down pay-per-view cycle this time. I don't mean down in the sense of he wasn't good. I mean down in the sense that he wasn't been featured prominently in one of the top spots building to this pay-per-view. That's just the depth of the AEW roster. It's so deep that guys like Ricochet aren't going to be featured on every single pay-per-view cycle. Same with Jet Speed, Bailey and Kevin Knight. They got a lot of great TV matches, but they weren't featured prominently going into this one. However, they were featured prominently going into the few previous, like if you look at Bailey and Knight this year, Bailey had a pay-per-view singles match with Okada, and Knight had a pay-per-view singles match with Ospreay, and they had a pay-per-view tag match for the tag titles. And then this one they were cycled out to the pre-show. That's fine. You just kind of can feature them prominently moving forward. To go back to Cottle Crow's question from the start of the show, Cottle asked, what kind of guys could you feature in on the babyface side of things in Swerve and in Ospreay's absence? To me, I think the guys that you should be pushing hardest with TV time are Brody King and Bandito. They can have a run with the tag titles. Get the main thing is that now, because like Swerve and Ospreay, they get at least 10 minutes TV time each on every Dynamite. So that's 20 minutes. Now sometimes that's 10 minutes together, obviously, but sometimes more. But they take up a good segment and a half, 2 segments of every Dynamite. I believe it should be Brody King and Bandito that get that TV time. Now, you might be pushing them initially in the same singles top guys positions that Osprey and Swerve have been pushed in, but by giving them that TV time, it allows them to build more of a connection with the audience. We've seen it here. Bandito and Brody King have a tremendous connection with the audience. Brody King has had a tremendous connection with the audience going back 2 years to the Continental Classic. He got over singles in the Continental Classic in some banger matches. The crowd started to fall in love with him. And now is the time where you have space on the baby face side of your roster to have this guy on Dynamite for 15 minutes every week for the foreseeable future. So what if they lose the tag team titles in a month? That actually doesn't matter. It's the TV time that matters. And now with Swerve and Osprey being gone for we don't know how long, Swerve probably for a couple of months, Osprey for probably little bit longer. It's Brody and Bandito that I would give their TV time to. When they lose the titles, push them then as singles acts who, like Osprey and Swerve, have a connection to each other, who can tag with each other from time to time. But yeah, I think to me, Brody and Bandito are probably the answers for who needs to step into the shoes that have been vacated by Osprey and Swerve. And I just picked this moment here, like I was picking match graphics for a lot of these jokes, but this moment where Brody and Bobby Lashley faced off, the crowd went bananas. James, if you're still in the chat, tell us what that was like in the building. Because the crowd went bananas here. And that kind of tells you, like, the crowd wants Brody King to be in a similar position and sees him as being in a similar position to Bobby Lashley, who is a 20-year tenured TV wrestling star. So yeah, a Brody King and Bandito would be some of my choices for this. I liked the end. Unfortunately, they missed time to finish. It was funny. Bandito went for the pin. He went to roll over. He actually rolled over too far and rolled off the pin. So Cash jumping in to break up the pin ended up being too early instead of being too late, which is what he was supposed to be. And it just kind of made for a sloppy finish. But I was up to that point, I thought this match was like a tremendous triple threat tag match. Yeah, the finish hurt a little bit because it kind of takes you out of it a little bit. But still, all in all, excellent match. Swerve and Osprey, again, really good match. I thought they had some great sequences in here. I thought Swerve dragged a lot of energy out of Okada. Did I say Swerve and Osprey? Send them words a lot. Um, I thought Swerve dragged a lot of energy out of Okada. He pushed him to work at a higher clip in the early stages of the match. And again, I thought a strong finish, the right winner. Um, this is really building up to what I feel is going to be the next couple of years worth of storylines. Um, After this match, we had a great angle where they go after the knee of Swerve. They trap him in the ring post in the corner behind what ring post on the steel steps. They go after the already injured knee, um, and they go after poor Prince Nana as well, which gives Swerve something really to come back after. And then we got a fantastic return from Wardlow. been put in the Don Callis family, which, let's be honest, Don Callis family has been built really well over the last 12, maybe more months in particular. They're around longer than that. But in the early days, they had good moments and bad moments. So sometimes you felt like, what kind of is their purpose? We're starting to see that now. We're building Don Callis' Dangerous Alliance. And I think Don Callis is operating at a level now higher than what Paul Heyman was when he had his Dangerous Alliance. Um, he's just operating at such a high level in so many ways, both in like commentary and as a face and a mouthpiece for this faction. And it's not one of these factions who are like this brotherhood who are a faction because they're all best friends or whatever. This is a faction of people who want one manager to help them be successful. I think Don Callis is doing a great job of that. I think this is a great fit for Wardlow. And I picked this picture first because I think Wardlow as a heater and like the muscle for Okada is a tremendous decision. I actually thought that Wardlow would come back with MJF to reignite or reunite their old partnership, and that would help Wardlow. But I think this is a better idea because Okada's character is such a smarmy arsehole as well, and like this guy who like wrestling is just too easy for me, and I'm just effortlessly better than everyone, and I'm like this rich yuppie kid, and now I have my big beast of a bully beside me as well. You kind of disagree, Oshin, with the Warlow direction. I feel like having a back's part of something else again risks losing him in a shuffle again. I get that too. I think that might be indicative of the fact that you probably think Wardlow has a higher upside than I do. I don't think Wardlow has a tremendously high upside. Um, I know like Shane thinks he has a high upside. I don't think he has that high an upside. I don't think he'll ever be a big time single star. I don't think he'll ever be world champion material. I think like the best position for him is as like a menacing sidekick almost. So that's why I'm happy with this direction. So I think that in my opinion, that's the best use of him. I know I've argued with Shane about this. Shane thinks he has tremendous potential and that he might be better off in WWE where they use body guys a little bit better, for the most part. Um, but also I don't know if he's tall enough for WWE to be pushed at the top level because he's surprisingly not that tall for a guy who's like in such great shape. Um, but I like this direction personally. But then again, if because you like in terms of interesting characters, where's he going to be slotted in the Don Callis family? Fifth, fourth, best. Like he's obviously behind Okada. He's behind Takeshita. He's behind Fletcher. He's behind. Well, you could put him next, I suppose. But yeah, look at this faction right here. This is such a badass faction. Um, but again, to go back to Cottlecraw's question, and something I think that you said it earlier on, Ush, about no, it was David Ayres. Takeshita face turn incoming. I think there's a Takeshita face turn incoming as well. And I think probably what we get is a slow build to a big time Takeshita Okada match, um, which that'll be just utterly fantastic. And I think we could probably the way I'm kind of seeing it play out is I actually think Okada is the next world champion. But in order to do that, or the next kind, I do think there's a possibility that Hangman and MJF swap the title back and forth once or twice. Like Hangman might lose to MJF and then win it back off him shortly afterwards. I think that is a possibility. But I also think it's a possibility that Hangman holds the title to like Revolution in February, March next year. And then I think he drops to Okada. I think Okada will hold that title till All In and Wembley next year, where he'll main event versus Osprey and drop the title to Osprey there. So we get like a 5, 6 month Okada run with the title next year. Um, I feel like he's heating up again now at the right time. We've seen him now beat Swerve. We've seen him now beat Kenny. The only thing is he's carrying that unified title, so you kind of want to get that off him before you put him in the world title picture. And I think how he loses that is if you haven't been watching AEW for a long time, they do a big tournament in kind of November, December every year called Continental Classic, which is two groups of six, and within your group you wrestle everyone in a round robin. Top two from each group go into semi-finals, and the semi-finals are on the same night uh, at the World's End pay-per-view at the end of the year. And so I think what is going to happen is I see this playing out two ways. Is that Takeshita and Okada go to the finals where they face each other, and Takeshita beats him for the unified title, which then allows Okada to move on towards the world title. Or the other thing I could see happening is that they actually do the rematch of Kenny and Okada in the final or semi-final of that Continental Classic. But I do think Takeshita face turn is pretty imminently. I would say probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks. That'll help New Japan as well because I think it's quite obvious they want him to be a face, despite the fact that fans themselves don't really want him to be a face. But part of the problem he's having in New Japan and why he's not really connecting with the crowd there is because every second match he's working as a face or a heel. So it needs to be decided, right? Is he a face now? Okay, he's a face in both companies. Let's push him as that. And that'll allow him to work his matches in that role. Yeah, so I thought it was a really good match. Loved this angle. I think this is foreshadowing of the direction of while the Debt Riders are still hot now, they're kind of winding down a little bit. And I think we're looking at the next top heel faction here. On to Tony and Athena. I know I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that are. I know there's a lot of people who felt that Athena should have won this match. I don't. I thought it was a weird one in that I thought it was both simultaneously probably a good time to put the title on Athena, but also not the right time to take the belt off Tony. Tony's so hot right now, and she's so over as like one of your top baby faces, and you're losing Swerve and Osprey. And I know like they're not in the same division, but also she's someone extremely reliable that's extremely over that you can give prominent segments of TV to and know that she will keep the ratings and or grow the ratings because she is that over as a needle mover. So when you're losing a lot of your top talent to injury, have proven draws available with titles on them. I didn't feel like it was the right time. I thought this was another cracker of a match. Um, like 4 stars plus, probably four near the 4.5 star match, like fucking cracker of a match. Really enjoyed it. Maybe they should have gone for a pin instead of a tap out. But again, it's Tony Storm, maybe part of the problem is they have two women who are holding the titles for a long period of time, but the two of them are so over, it's hard to take titles off them. And I've always felt the long term direction for the world title was somebody like Statlander. I think the long term direction for the TBS title, Mercedes, is Willow. And I think we'll see Willow beat Mercedes for the TBS title at a similar time that we see Statlander beat Athena or beat Tony Storm for the world title. Um, and allow because their storylines are connected to each other as well, so that will allow their storylines to mirror each other as now both of them holding the two women's titles in the company. And they're going to feel like huge megastars when they finally do beat Tony Storm and Mercedes. Um, but I do think as well, like I still think the money match in this division is a rematch with Tony and Mercedes, and I think you try and build to that sometime in the next. You don't do it straight away because we're not long off the back of it. You let that kind of sit and ruminate for a bit, but I think you do try and build to that to have in the pocket for early. Because if you look at AEW pay-per-view schedule, you don't get anything in January, but then like March, April, May, June, July, August, you get a run of them. So you need to have big matches built for that. I know we still have three more this year, but I don't think you need a Tony versus Mercedes match for any of them. I'd be looking more at in the early stage of next year for that rematch. Because I think there's enough matches you can do that will draw money that you don't need to do those ones. You don't need to run that one back just yet. Um, you don't always want to rush your big money matches, but you don't want to let them sit too long either because you don't know what's going to happen. I think one of the biggest mistakes they made was they did the 30-minute time limit draw with Kenny and Danielson, and they tried to keep them apart for so long that they both ended up injured, and very different times to each other, and you never got that rematch. And that would have, that one sold out. Was the headliner for the sellout in 20,000 in the Arthur Ashe Arena. First time they ran that in New York. Um, they would have done major numbers on the pay-per-view, Kenny versus Danielson rematch. They probably, possibly could have kept it to headline a pay-per-view with anyway. But I guess it was the timing of when Danielson came in. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I think Tony and Mercedes is still the biggest match in this um, division, and I think you do want to do that with Tony as like the biggest draw in the division. I think right now is Mercedes trying to get the world title, and it's more of a draw if he's trying to take it off Tony. I think you should build a case where Mercedes wins every single title in the world. She's carrying 25 titles to the ring, and she still cannot take this world title that Tony holds, and that's the one that eludes her. And maybe she'll win it in the future, but she should never beat Tony for the women's world title. Um, I love this poster so much. I wanted to highlight this. This was done in the build to the match. It was the reverse of the poster for the Revolution match when uh, MJF was inside Hangman's head. Anyway, I thought this was an exceptional wrestling match until the finish. I didn't hate the finish, but I predicted shenanigan finish on the Forbidden Door preview on Saturday. Reason being is the storyline told us there's going to be shenanigans, and again, MJF has every right to be pissed off that he got a 3 count. Despite the fact Hangman had his foot on the ropes, but MJF did get a 3 count, and the ref never rang the bell, and the match restarted, and Hangman beat him. That tombstone spot on the table on the outside was nasty. I kind of shit my pants on that one. Um, but yeah, I thought like a really just great, well-paced match, like a real war of attrition. These two guys have incredible chemistry. Shane will hate me if I say they're wrestling soulmates because I say that about everyone that wrestles Hangman. He has several wrestling soulmates. Um, he is the polyamorous wrestler of having partners who he loves them all and they love him. He brings the best out of everyone. I do think we saw some of Max's more bad habits come to light. He does like entertainment style overbooking at times. Um, and this is the second major title match on a pay per view. No, it's more like it's like 10 in a row that have had interference. I think the next one needs to have no shenanigans because they're veering in that direction of all their world title matches having too much shenanigans. So I think they need to re-establish that these matches can happen without shenanigans. I think this match was built and designed around allowing us to have a rematch. And I do believe that rematch is going to happen at All Out. I think that's the right place for that rematch to happen. Um, but yeah, I thought this was like tremendous up to the finish. And I even kind of liked the finish, to be perfectly honest. It was like enough of madness going on. I know Shane liked it as well, and he normally doesn't like that kind of finishes. I know Johnny the Beast Mortis liked it as well, and I think he normally doesn't like those kind of finishes. But yeah, it was a lot of shenanigans, but I still kind of liked it, and it's still Hangman was never the dumb babyface, and that's super important. But it gives MJF. MJF should come to Dynamite on Wednesday, fucking livid and seething and with blood on his mind. And then we get the build to what I think should be a big stip match at All Out. I think you could even go with these two because we've seen them both do it not with each other but with others. We've seen these guys wrestle 1 hour matches before. MGF did a 59-minute, 58-second match with Osprey on TV that was exceptional. Um, Hangman did a 1 hour draw with Brian Danielson on TV, which was exceptional. MJF did an Iron Man match with Danielson at Revolution a couple of years ago, which is, my opinion, the best 1 hour Iron Man match in professional wrestling history. I think this is time to do an Iron Man match. It's going to be put up on. I think an Iron Man match will be good, and the reason I was thinking some David like potentially like a kind of a street fight or a death match or something. But I think Mox versus Darby is going to be on the same card. And I think that's your plunder match. So I think you need to do something different with MJF and Hangman. You could even do a 2 out of 3 falls match, with MJF taking the first fall by nefarious means and then Hangman having to win 2 in a row to retain the title. I think that would be a good direction as well. But sometimes, like Iron Man matches and 2 out of 3 falls matches, the weakness of those matches is that there isn't, when it's ending. So will the crowd not engage with the match if it's an Iron Man match till the last 10 minutes? Uh, and or if it's 2 out of 3 falls match, will the crowd not engage with the match when it's the first fall and second fall? Will it be a thing of they're waiting for the third fall to get back into the match because now the match can finish? So that's the danger of running those two type of matches. But I think MJF and Hangman Page are so good at pacing long matches, and they both worked with the masters, um, the master of long matches, Danielson, uh, where they would have learned a lot. And it seems Danielson's around backstage as well, so you could get him to agent the match. And I think they could have a tremendous either 1 hour Iron Man match or a 2 out of 3 falls match. David, I did actually think of the 3 stages of hell thing where they each pick a stipulation. Um, Again, I think like because Mox and Darby's going to be on the same card, they're going to do like something fucking insane that you want to differentiate stylistically the two matches. Um, I did think of 3 stages of hell, and I thought, oh, geez, that'd be cool. And then I started thinking, it's like, fuck yeah, but the issue there is that Mox and Darby are going to do like the Mox and Darby thing is going to be some sort of death match, and do you want that on the same card as? I just think it becomes the lack of variety becomes an issue. But yeah, I fucking love this match. Thought it was excellent. Um, had the right winner as well. Like they really are pushing Hangman as like the main character, and MJF is doing a good job of placing himself as the main antagonist. I do think Kyle Fletcher is catching up with him rapidly as top heel potential. I think Kyle has more subtle instincts of what works. Kyle trusts his instincts more, I think, in some ways than MJF does. I think Kyle in the future will be a tremendous opponent for Hangman. Now, this fucking match was absolutely, utterly bonkers. Um, I mean, like, the shit that went on. Like, how do you even review this match? It was fucking awesome. But also, it was just insanity. Like, there was just something insane happening every 2 minutes. And, like, it kind of, what was one of the best moments on the show, actually, was Will Ospreay's entrance. The emotion that was pouring out of him. And but like I mean, look at this lineup. I know poor Darby is in bits on the outside here now. But yeah, a lot of this match was built towards Darby and Mox. A lot of the match was built towards honoring Tanahashi. Poor Tanahashi just cannot walk. This guy just did a G1. Like he's wrestled something like 95 matches this year. This is the most epic retirement run ever for a guy who actually can't even walk. I thought it was really funny that moment he went to go up the ladder and Ibushi and I think it was Osprey or Ibushi and Omega were like, no, 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 don't jump off something high. Like, you're old, man. Um, but yeah, it was great. And it was also like, it was a classy touch to have Tanahashi get the pin in his last ever match in England. Like, we're looking at Tanahashi now, and that guy is crocked. He needs to retire. Like, I know he's retiring in January. I don't know how he's going to get there because he's just wrestling a crazy schedule for a guy of his age and his physical condition. But like, legitimately, Tanahashi is like a top tier all time wrestler. Like from like 2007 or 8 all the way up to 2020 ish. He is legitimately in the conversation for best wrestler every year for 14, 15 years straight. Um, his stuff with Okada is legendary. He's had a couple of legendary matches with Ibushi. He's had legendary matches with Omega. And to see these four guys in the ring together, none of whom have been in WWE, except Ibushi did that one Continental Classic that they wanted him to win, but he wouldn't sign a fucking contract, so they had to have TJP win it. I think it was TJP won that, wasn't it? Zack Sabre Jr. was in that too, and he also wouldn't sign a contract. They just wanted to do the Continental Classic. Not the Continental Classic, the Cruiserweight Classic. But like each of these guys in the last 15 years have all at one point or another been the best wrestler in the world. And you like we were seeing that kind of evolution of right there in front of us. Like Tanahashi was the first one to achieve that status. Omega was the second one to achieve that status. Ibushi was the third one to achieve that status, and now it's Osprey is like the best in-ring wrestler of the world. And I just thought it was such a cool thing to see these four guys together. Poor Darby's on the outside there after smashing himself through a load of chairs or tables with Gabe Kidd. I thought again the Death Riders just were tremendous in this. I thought the Young Bucks were good. Young Bucks are just so good at being stooging heels. And like Matt Jackson is more willing than anyone to take bumps, to look stupid, and eat pins. I think the Young Bucks are doing very, very good work at the moment. Could have done without the gummy bear spot. Thought that was a little bit silly. Didn't fit in with the overall tone of the match. But still, just a match of chaos. This was a spectacle. Because even the entrances were a spectacle. You have the Young Bucks coming into Bop. Um, the entrances were a spectacle. The match itself was a spectacle. You had the right winners, send the crowd home happy. Tanahashi gets his pin. Darby gets to do something crazy. Ibushi just gets to somehow extend the career. That man has put his body through hell. We get to see Omega. None of them had to wrestle super hard for like 30, 40 minutes, which is what all these guys have made their careers off. And it was just like a pure crowd pop spectacle, or a pop spectacle for the crowd to have that moment with like four legends of the sport. And then they do afterwards the right off angle with Will Ospreay, which I thought was a tremendous angle. I know people were giving out online about the babyface is not doing enough to get into the ring, but they were being held at bay by Wheeler Yuta and his kendo stick, and the fact that it's already been established that Tanahashi can't claim shit. So how's he going to get over the cage? Kenny Omega's goosed, Ibushi's goosed. Darby had just fallen 25 feet off the top of the cage. And then the ops have to come down. And by the time they're there, although there was one really funny moment, you couldn't see it on the TV broadcast. I've seen it on Twitter. If you get the chance, go look for it. Where this is the most Ibushi thing ever. He runs for about 20 yards and just launches himself at the cage to try and break the wall down. I was like, that is fucking awesome. But yeah, they do the big angle writing off, like a murder angle, like as if they're writing off Osprey for a year. Now, I think, call me crazy, I think there's an element of work happening here. I don't think Osprey is as injured. I think he's injured. I think he probably needs surgery, but I don't think he's as injured as they're letting on. I think that emotion he's showing to the crowd, he's trying to sell the fact that he's going away for a very, very, very long time. He's getting neck surgery. He might never be the same again. And maybe he won't. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think there's an element that we're being worked. I think we see him much sooner than we maybe realize. And I don't mean like in 2 or 3 months. I don't think we'll see him in 2025. But I do think, I've no doubt in my mind that he'll be back for the Owen Hart Cup next year. I think we might even see him sooner than that. Well, he is going to miss some time. Um, I've no doubt in my mind that he's going to be headlining Wembley next year, going for a world title actually. Um, and I think he's going to be probably as every bit as good as he is now. You know, physical toll racks up on your body over time, and there will become a day where Will Ospreay isn't as dynamic or as good as he is now. But I think we've seen enough development over him from him in the last 3.5 years, whereby him slowing down slightly physically isn't going to actually impact the match quality, and in some cases might actually enhance the drama because he's so crisp at the moment. He's nearly too crisp. He's actually nearly too good a professional wrestler. Um, I do think we see him back in the kind of 5 6 month time frame. I, s- I, I think we like his return will happen around Revolution in February. Um, but again, I thought it was a great angle, and it got a lot of heat back on the Debt Riders. Those guys still have. Isn't it crazy to think where the Debt Riders, where they were in January in terms of crowd reaction and crowd perception to where they are now? Talk about an all-time fucking turnaround. It felt like they were dragging every show down. And now Mox feels more alive and dynamic than ever as a character. David Ayres thinks he'll miss All In. Dave, I don't know, maybe I might have been wrong thinking like with 12 months to All In. I think I think they want us to think he's gonna miss All In. I just think there's an element, not like he's injured. He's really injured. They're not work. It's not a worked injury. He is really injured. But I think they're letting us believe he's more injured than he is. So like that thing, Cena years ago when he came back for the Royal Rumble, the crowd went ballistic because he was supposed to be out way longer. And same with Triple H that time. Crowd went ballistic. Thought he'd be out another 4 months. I think that's what we're going to get with Osprey here, where there is an injury. It needs serious rehab, but it's actually only a 6 month thing and not a 12, 13, 14, 15 month thing. I think he's back for All In next year. I think he's back like in enough time to build a world title program for All In next year. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the show. Overall, I thought it was a pretty, like, very, very good show. Didn't think it was the best AEW pay per view this year by any stretch of the imagination. But I like watched whatever it was, 4.5 hours of it. Enjoyed it immensely. Thought there was some really great wrestling on it. It hasn't exactly been thrilling, but fucking hell, the Debt Riders have been effective in getting the company from A to B. Yeah, they're so effective. And also, it's kind of become thrilling now. Like, it's crazy because there was days there, Oshin, December, when they did that fucking four-way title match last year, um, and into the Adam Corbin stuff, where we were legit questioning, is AEW fucked? And the Debt Riders are part of the resurgence. They're a key part of the resurgence of both TV quality and business going back up. And let's not forget, this show put nearly 19,000 in the O2 arena, selling more tickets than what you call now. Not they didn't do the same money get because tickets were cheaper, but they put more people in that building than WWE did for Money in the Bank a couple of years ago. Uh, the van is back. Shane says the van is back. The biggest moment in the wrestling fan wrestling show history is coming soon. In the meantime, like, comment, subscribe, share, um, watch our watch our video from last week at the WWE backstage dynamics, power dynamics video. Me and Shane had tremendous fun recording that one. I felt really good after recording. I was like, I think we did a good episode. Check that out. I get Ronan C says Morrow versus Shane chops only match. I've laid down the challenge. He hasn't accepted. Because I'm not a trained wrestler, but I can give a chop and I can take a chop. And I think, oh, check out the Insta. Okay, there's something on the Insta. There is something on the Insta. What has been revealed? Right, that's a picture in the WhatsApp group. Is it the same one that's on the Insta? Let me see. Oh, there's something on the Insta. Wrestling fan wrestling show on Instagram. It's been revealed. The wrestling fan wrestling show, mainly Shane, has bought a wrestling ring. Good night. Goodbye. We'll chat to you soon.